Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to a tutorial by EMAX USA. Today we're going to be going over how to update our Tinyhawk S to work with the Tinyhawk RTF controller. The first thing that we're going to need to do with this is make sure that we have Betaflight Configurator installed and all the applicable drivers. You can find the Betaflight Configurator at the link provided below. You can download this for whichever system you have. About midway down the page, you can choose your system here to install Betaflight Configurator 10.5.1. And from there, we're going to make sure that we also have the Impulse RC driver fixer available in case our Tinyhawk S does not go into DFU mode. DFU mode is the bootloader mode that the Tinyhawk S has available that we'll need to use to update it. So install Betaflight Configurator 10.5 and make sure that you have Impulse RC driver fixer available, and I'll see you in the next step. Now that you have Betaflight installed and the DFU fixer ready and available for you in case you need it, we're going to connect our Tinyhawk to Betaflight using a micro USB cable. The micro USB port is located behind the camera on the Tinyhawk S. Once you plug it in, you should get a beep initializing that the Tinyhawk has connected to the computer successfully and that we have COM3 showing in the top port. So we're going to connect to Betaflight. Once you're in this screen, we're going to go to the left, head down to our CLI tab, click onto it, and you should have a command prompt open ready for commands. Next, we're going to type the letters BL, as in bootloader, into the CLI command and hit enter. This will reboot the Tinyhawk S into DFU mode. Now that we see on the top port is showing DFU, we're going to go over to our left to the firmware flasher tab. We're going to select our target for the Tinyhawk S, which is Maytech F411RX. Now we're not going to load the firmware online. The file will be provided to you below. This file will need to be downloaded onto your PC and we'll navigate to it from this tab. We're going to hit load firmware, and now we're going to flash the firmware on the Tinyhawk S. This will take just a moment. Now that the Tinyhawk S has been successfully updated, you'll see that it says programming successful where the loading bar was, and now the Tinyhawk S is ready for the RTF CLI dump. Now that the firmware update is complete, we can connect to Betaflight again. We're again going to go down to our CLI tab on the left side, and you are going to copy and paste the entirety of the document located at the link in the description below into the CLI tab. The last line should say save, but if you scroll up while in the line, you should see that it's going to set all of these parameters. And then we're going to hit enter to dump the CLI on. It's going to go through a list of settings. This should only take a moment. Now that the CLI has been pasted, saved, and your Tinyhawk S has rebooted, your Tinyhawk S is now ready to be bound with our RTF transmitter. The first step that you're going to want to do is locate the bind button on your Tinyhawk S. If you flip over your Tinyhawk S, your bind button will be located under this corner here. With the battery disattached, you can press down this corner and you'll feel a slight click. We're going to attach our battery to the Tinyhawk S itself. Wait till it fully boots up. And at this time, both the red LED and the blue LED on the flight controller should be blinking. When we flip the Tinyhawk over, we're going to press our bind button for 2 seconds using that corner that we just talked about. 1, 2. Release, and now your Tinyhawk will be in binding mode, meaning that the blue light is solid and the red light is blinking. Binding with our E6 transmitter, we're going to put our E6 transmitter into bind mode by holding both the trim buttons down at the same time. Now that the transmitter is in binding mode and the Tinyhawk S is now bound, both the blue light and the red LED are flashing. We can disconnect our LiPo from the Tinyhawk S, turn off our transmitter, and then we'll verify that this is bound. So we'll plug in our LiPo battery again. And both our LEDs will be flashing again. And now turning on our transmitter turns the blue light solid. And this indicates that the Tinyhawk S is now bound.